Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Wednesday, December 18th. Notre Dame plays Indiana in the first round in the first ever college football playoff game on Friday in Notre Dame Stadium at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk about that. We're going to give our final thoughts on that game. We're going to give our predictions. Tell everyone what we think is going to happen. Talk about some of the last minute matchup stuff. Get the vibe check. We'll talk about. We're going to give our predictions for the college football playoff first round in its entirety. We can talk about that. Any matchup things that come up in the chat that people want to talk about, and then just have general football conversation. It's going to be a good show. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So whenever it is, we are going to go live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. The show, as always, is brought to you by ESQ Clothing. It's the season of giving, so the secret ESQ sale lives on. Use code ISD to get 25% off all online items through Christmas. Not valid on gift cards or custom items. Check out ESQ's award-winning dress shirt on your favorite players and coaches and give the gift of style. If you're visiting Chicago, Maybe you're coming in for the game and it's like a Friday. So it's, you don't got to rush back. You're going to be in Chicago on Saturday. Check out Chicago. Explore all of ESQ's bespoke options. ESQ headquarters is located in Chicago, of course. With over a decade of creating handmade bespoke clothing, ESQ's tailoring expertise will craft a garment as unique to you. So code ISD, 25% off. Jamie, listen, the Hit and Hustle boys, we're playing hurt a little bit, right? I don't feel that great. There's something going around my family. Your shoulder, Jamie's shoulder's acting up. He's got to get on a plane tomorrow. We're going to shoot him up with something. We're going to give him a shot like the old days. He's going to make it happen. But anyway, we're doing all right. Vince King, though, is wondering about Jeremiah Love. It sounds like Love is full go, but it's a little odd that ESPN Bet doesn't have props for reception to rushing yards. Pump for the game, go Irish. What game was it when
Georgia Tech, I think it was.
Was it Georgia? It was Georgia Tech. Yeah, there was like a whole bunch of Jeremiah Love, like is he or isn't he? The same kind of thing happened. Like the props were up.
They took it off like right before game time.
Yeah. God, it's been such a weird year, I feel like, for things of that nature, where it's like, pregame. There's text messages. Is this guy okay? Is that guy okay? Is this guy going to play? Is that guy going to play? Like Riley Leonard had his thing with his shoulder and everyone was on Angeli watch. Like, is he going to play against Purdue? Jeremiah Love with his knee. I don't even know what the injury was before. Howard Cross. Like, is he out for the season in the preseason? Like, there's been so many like things. And I don't think any of them have really panned out. I think everything was like, if it's on the day of the game and it's like concerned, I think it's been okay. The only one was Christian Gray.
Christian Gray before Louisville,
where it was like we saw. And the funny thing is I think I told this story. That was the game that we were at, but I went down for the player walk, and I had to be standing right in the spot where Christian Gray's family was. He came over and he couldn't have been happier. Said everything was fine. You go out there and warm-ups, you watch him, he's with the first team, come out, takes no snaps. So that was kind of weird. But we expect Jeremiah Love to be fine for this game. Despite the knee brace and everything, I think he's going to be good to go. Let's see. Isaac K says, Joel Klatt says Indiana is going to win outright, just like Navy. Yeah, people say things. Doesn't really matter. We're in the
covers the Big Ten for Fox.
Yeah.
Good for him. It's in his best interest.
Yeah. PQ, what it do? Thank you for the super chat. I'm going to save this for the 10-hour drive to South Bend tomorrow, but have a great show, fellas. Go Irish. Where are you coming from, my guy? 10 hours?
Yeah.
Is he out with me? Is he with me somewhere, Jamie? Or is he like he is not with me? Maybe he's in the Midwest somewhere. Good job by you, PQ. What it do? Make the drive. Have a good time. The show, you're gonna have to listen to a bunch of Northern Virginia. He's coming from Northern Virginia. So good job. we're not going to have enough content. I apologize, Poop. I told you I'm not. He said that's really bad by me. I said he's well, I didn't do a good job with that. All right. I told you I don't feel good. My mind is not really working very well. Jamie, you fly out tomorrow. Okay. You're flying out, and before you get on the plane, kind of what are your kind of like you've analyzed this game this way, that way, all the ways, right? And I think you've thought about this game. I've thought about this game. What is kind of all the things so far that have been discussed, what is the thing that has kind of stuck with you in terms of how you think this game is going to go? Like, what do you keep coming back to, I guess is a good way to put it.
I keep coming back to, two things. The one thing on offense for Indiana was their inability to beat man coverage against Michigan and Ohio State.
Okay.
That really has stuck with me. I'm sure that they will try to like double move Christian Gray, and they will, they'll go at him. Of course, they should.
Yeah.
They should, based on what they just saw. But just a lot of that stuff that they want to do in terms of like getting the ball out quickly, they really struggled when they were just going against a straight man. Like, and I think that is something when I think about Notre Dame's man coverage, I don't see them being able to have a ton of success against Notre Dame's coverage most of the day. So that really sticks out for me. I wrote about the part about the their protection issues and all that too. That definitely too is something in the back of my mind. And then, but on defense, it's really like how I think they're way better than people think. And I think like they do some really cool stuff scheme wise to kind of mess you up. That I think it's going to be a bit of a tough time for Notre Dame. There's going to be stretches where you're like, man, like shouldn't they be running it down their throats? And they're not, like I think there's going to be some of that. So I think there's going to be a little bit of like fits and starts for them against Indiana's defense. And I mean, I think it could open up because of Love or Price or Leonard just like really breaking stuff. But I do think it's going to like, it's not going to come easy. It's not going to be like, they're not going to run the ball like they came out and ran it on USC. That's what I think.
Yeah, like USC, that game, the first drive, you knew like they're in big trouble. USC's defense, just because Notre Dame was pushing them as well as they were. And that played out for the whole game. I think they ran for like about 270 there. Mike Kane asked about Notre Dame's tight ends, create a mismatch with their linebackers. Like, I think, obviously Michigan has the good tight end in Loveland. I think he was hurt for that game, though. I don't believe that.
No, he played in the game.
Did he play? Yeah. How did he do?
He didn't have a big game, but I mean, a lot of that was.
He's kind of the key to everything. Like, he's their only good player.
He's their only good guy, right? So it's a little bit different. And the other thing is too is that they don't play as much man, so it's not like, oh well, Mitch Evans is going to be against this linebacker, necessarily, right? So that's not how it's going to be. So it's more going to be about like, hey, can Riley Leonard like make these throws? It's like, here's this window, ball's got to get out. Ball's got to get out. And that I think is something that is going to matter with that. But I will say that Jalen Walker, who's their really good linebacker there. They got two really good linebackers, him and Aiden Fisher. Aiden Fisher is something I think if you get Aiden Fisher matched up, if Notre Dame, that's someone I think they can go after. I think he's a really good inside run defender, but I don't think like he's the he's the best if he's got to run with someone in coverage. I think he's a smart player in coverage, but a little bit like JD Bertrand, where you're like, hey, he's a very smart guy. He passes off stuff good, but he's not someone that, like, if you like got him matched up and he's got to turn around with somebody, maybe not the best cover guy there. So I think it'll be like, can they get that matchup? And if they get that matchup, because I think if you go against Walker, he's so fast. He's a guy who's going to really get into the body of these guys, and he can really, really run. So I think he's a much tougher matchup than if you get against Fisher.
Yeah. And I think, we do forget that because of how efficient they were moving the ball against Army, how efficient they were moving the ball against USC, where like every early possession against Army was either a touchdown or like they got to the 1 and they got stuffed or something, right? Same thing with USC. Like they went down and scored. They had the fumble, then they had
just the turnovers, really.
Yeah. So they had the score, touchdown, fumble, missed field goal, and then I think it was 3 straight touchdowns after that, or 4 straight touchdowns or something like that. They were consistently moving it, but we forget, like against Georgia Tech, there was long periods, number of drives in a row where it's like they're not really moving the ball. There's long periods against Virginia where they weren't really doing anything, right? There were long periods against even Florida State where they couldn't get it done. They finally got the long run by Jadarian Price there. So Notre Dame has done that, and not just that, they've done it at home, right? So Georgia Tech was obviously on the road, but Virginia was home, Florida State was home. A little bit different, right, in terms of intensity. You don't have the intensity of a playoff game, right? I think that people kind of, I think one thing we kind of make the mistake of is we go back and look at like regular season performances. Now, obviously, that's evidence, right? Like that's data, that's stuff you look at. That's how we make the basis for, that's how you make the basis for predictions, right? You look at what teams have been doing throughout the year. And I'm not saying Indiana is going to be a completely different team, but it's a playoff game and teams are playing for their season, right? There is this truly like, it's do or die for everyone for the rest of the year. And so teams, a team is not going to get discouraged by a missed punt, a missed field goal, some kind of mistake. Notre Dame gets up 14-0. That is not going to happen. Like they are going to continue to play. They believe that they're good. I think the other thing is like, I think teams believing that they're a good team, believing that they're a playoff team, believing that all 12 teams believe they're a team of destiny right now. Every single one does, right? And so to knock out teams is something, and this kind of goes to like, what I was talking about with Marcus Freeman and just the inexperience of this, where it's like you have to have a killer instinct to end someone's season, to literally end their season, right? And everyone's playing for their lives, and there's something to that. There's something to the that you follow hockey, right? Elimination games, right?
Yeah, game 7
games. These are all basically game 7s, right? No college football player has ever been in this scenario before. So how teams react to that is kind of an unknown, right?
You know what? I mean, I would say that no college teams have been in that because look at last week where those were elimination games for a lot of teams. And that has been,
it is for Notre Dame. It is for Notre Dame.
And that has been like really, and I know whatever you can say, that Notre Dame has been like, hey, it's been do or die for 10 weeks. It has, but it's a different thing when it's just like, hey, one and done. So the USC game, there was more pressure in that game than any other game, right? There just was.
That's definitely true. That's definitely true.
There's more pressure
because it was, like you said, it was the last one.
It's the last one, right? And you know that, like, hey, if we get this one, and the thing is you just want to get through it, right? And the thing is with Indiana, kind of, it'll be interesting with Indiana. First of all, someone asked about like where I think Mike Kane asked about like where would we put Indiana in terms of Notre Dame's opponent. I would say they're the best opponent Notre Dame has played this year by a pretty good margin, just overall as a team. Would I say that I think Louisville's offense was, more dangerous? Like I think they were more dangerous. They're more explosive. I would say that, Texas A&M's defensive line was easily like the scariest one that they won against all year. They might have 2 first-round picks there. I think if we're looking at just like the totality of like, they don't have a lot of weaknesses. So then when we're talking about like these things that it's like going to take, it's like, you can't go and play a B game and beat them if they play an A game. You just won't. That's what Cignetti has done for them, is that, in order to beat Indiana, you have to play well. Right? So I think that's something. So no one should take them lightly just because like, hey, Notre Dame's recruited this better and all that kind of stuff. It's like, I mean, they're 11-1 for a reason. But in saying all of that, it's weird with Indiana because they kind of been playing with house money all year. Like, no one expected them to go on a run, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you look at, say, go back to when they were 6-0. And at that point, Army was 6-0. Navy was 6-0. Like, there was all these teams that were undefeated that it was like, there might have been somebody else in the big who was there. Like, you know what I mean? There was these teams that people just looked at and they were like, wow, like, oh my gosh, like what a great story, right? And to Indiana's credit, they've just kind of rode it along the way and kept winning. But they got to a point when it was like when they were 9-0. They basically, the only real game where they were like, man, there's so much pressure on this game was Michigan. And the reason I say that is because they knew that, oh my gosh, if we lose this Michigan game, if you lose Michigan game, you have to win the Ohio State game or else it's done. Right. So that was the game. And then in that second half, I mean, credit to them because they came out and they got they got a field goal late in the game when they hadn't really done much, boosted by some things. But, Elijah Surratt, who's been a really, really good player for them this year, man, he had 2 like big drops, hit him right in the hands. That catches that he would make all year. Right. So just stuff like that. And, they were feeling it. And they were feeling that pressure. And then even though they got whooped by Ohio State, they knew they were playing Purdue after. Yeah. So it wasn't like they weren't going to lose to Purdue. Like no one was going to lose to Purdue. So they knew that they were in. They knew that they were in. So it's a weird situation because, and then they also knew that, hey, there's no way that they were going to get into the big championship game, right? Because even after Ohio State lost to Michigan, Penn State would have had to lose as well for Indiana to get in. So it's like they weren't going to get in there. So they didn't have that same kind of pressure. And like even Penn State, after they played Ohio State, and they lost that game, they had that game on the road against Minnesota that was like really tough. Indiana hasn't had that. So it's like, I think it is a little bit different for Indiana where, Notre Dame obviously just had the USC game and that was pretty pressure packed. It was pretty pressure packed. Like they could never pull away till the very end. Right. USC never had a lead, but they could never pull away. Right. And, Indiana just hasn't had that. So it's like, even when there was the thing of like, oh, well, how are they going to react when they are trailed, because they hadn't trailed like all season until like the Michigan State game. And then it's like, well, they're down 10 and they responded by scoring 40 something straight, which is like, that's great. But I mean, that's a bad team that you did it against, right? It's not it's different if you're like going against, it's different if you're down 10 to Michigan or Ohio State. It just is. It's different if you're down 10 to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And I think that there is going to be a different kind of pressure on them in this game, that you just don't know how they're going to react to that. And I think it's something, and you know, and we've talked about too, about how like, how's Notre Dame if they get into a situation where it's like a real 2-minute situation, not like, hey, we're trying to win the middle 8, like a real 2-minute situation at the end of the game where you got to score to win the game or to tie the game. I mean, that's a different kind of pressure. So obviously, like, these are the kind of games that reveals that kind of thing. So it's going to be really interesting to watch. I think that I saw there was like some, it's so funny. There was like, I didn't even know there was like Indiana fan trolls out there. Hey, thanks for coming to the show, Indiana troll guy. But he was talking about NIU there. But it's like, oh, who knows? Maybe he's a Michigan fan troll or whatever. But whatever. He's hanging around, and it's just funny because that's the kind of thing that brings us out. Where I mean, I don't think Indiana guys have.
Oh, pretty quiet. I didn't even notice that. I didn't even notice that. That's funny. Yeah. That's good.
Didn't know they were around, but
no, that's cool. Like, awesome. I saw the NIU stuff in the chat, but I didn't even put it together. That's fun. You know what? I'll tell you what. Maybe I've kind of alluded to this before with the USC game, but like, I think I think it matters that, you know, that was very much like you said, the pressure. I mean, you could definitely feel it, right? Like, I mean, I could feel it being at the game, and just because of like, just I don't like it when it's a don't blow it situation.
Yeah.
And I think the team can feel that. And like, it never got to the point. Like, look, sometimes you can feel when a Notre Dame team is puckering a little bit. Frankly, you felt it against NIU, like they're puckering, you know?
Yeah.
And with the USC game, they had a couple opportunities to kind of get to that point, and it never did, right? And I think that, you know, the offense, like in the second half, like they kept matching scores, and they kept making sure, like, no, we're not going to trail in this game. We're not going to do that. And then they went up there 2 scores. The defense made the plays that they needed to make sure the game never got tied after they went up 2 scores. Like, Christian Gray made the play, right? Like, they were clearly shaken, right? Like, USC had clearly done things against them, and then Christian Gray makes the play, and then Xavier Watts makes the play. It's like, no, like, it's never getting to that point. And like, that's impressive to me as like as just like, you know, you wonder about, like, Mike likes to talk about this all the time, like culture and leadership and that sort of thing. That's pretty clear. Like, there's some pretty good culture on this team. There's pretty good leadership on this team where, like, they have guys that continually step up. They stepped up and made the plays when they needed to. That's almost like kind of regardless of opponent, like the game pressure is almost enough to kind of even the teams out a little bit. So that's impressive by Notre Dame. I'm curious. I know you don't really like these kind of conversations, but it has taken place over the last like year. Or no, last week. So I'm curious to know where you come out on the what makes a successful season discourse. Just I don't want you to react to
what I don't actually don't mind having these things. I just I don't like it when people are like, well, this is like when people move the goalposts on
right. Like, so just for you, like, where are you at with it? Just like sitting here today, like, what is your take on, like, what is a successful season? What is a successful result? Like, should Notre Dame lose on Friday? Like, what does that mean for you in terms of this season? And, you know, how are you going to feel about this season, and so on and so forth?
So I talked a little bit about this on CW's pod, the Rakes Report, when he asked me about it. And I mean, if you lose to Indiana, you do all this work to get a home game.
Yeah.
You know, for a playoff game, you're playing Indiana. You know, it's a team that on paper you're better than, you know, just in just about every sense, right? So, yeah, if you lose this game, it's a major disappointment. There's no other way to kind of look at it. Like, it's a major disappointment for the game, but it doesn't make the season a disappointment because of what they did to get to this point. So I think that, you know, or if they get to Georgia and they don't beat Georgia, right? If they win this game and then they play Georgia and then they lose a close game to Georgia, that doesn't mean it's like, well, you know, they obviously like there will be hot takes. Freeman doesn't have it. Like there will be that after that. You know, there will be. But I just think that's like now you're just in a situation where context matters so much, right? It really does. So what's Notre Dame's health for in where they're at right now and what they've kind of gone through to accomplish that season, that has to be taken into account of like how well they played this season and how well the defense has like still played really well despite missing like essentially like I don't know 4 starters or whatever, right? Like and the offensive line for them to get to where they're at with all the losses they had there too, right? So that kind of stuff does matter a lot because it's a sign of greater health within the program, right? And Marcus Freeman having a good enough season that he earns an extension and they're going to put more resources into the program because of this season.
Yeah.
No matter what, win or lose this game, there will be more resources put into the program, whether that's from just the administration itself or from boosters or whatever. It's just like one of those things. It's like when you hear like famous people say, hey, when I was rich and famous, people want to give me stuff for free. And now I'm like down and out and no one's offered me a hand to pick me up, right? Like they don't care. And that is, I mean, that's the world, right? That is the world. Like that's kind of how things are. Because if there would be reasons why Notre Dame went 8-4 if they did go 8-4 this year.
Yeah.
But no one would care in terms of the people who are giving the money. They're not going to be like, well, 8-4, man, I got to put more money into it. That's not how it works usually. So I think getting to this, they're getting more resources in the thing to help build it and sustain it and get it better, even better than it is. I think from that perspective and all of that, win or lose this game, next game, whatever games going forward, it's absolutely a successful season. And that's how I judge it.
Okay. I like that. I like that. I like that take. I'm going to give you mine in a second. There is a bit of news, sort of, I guess, from Marcus Freeman. He's speaking right now. Marcus Freeman on uniforms. Captains decide what the team wears. Under Armour had new jerseys made months ago if Notre Dame made the playoffs, but Freeman hasn't seen them. He hasn't seen the uniforms, Jamie? You think that's true that he hasn't seen them?
That doesn't seem correct, but I don't know. Maybe he's just keeping it.
Either they do or they don't. You know, people are asking like so many questions about this. Like people, it was kind of like first of all, like it's the playoff vacuum where like you have 3 weeks run up. You got to talk about something, right? Like there's everyone's talked about Indiana ad nauseum. You got to talk about something. The jerseys, Terry Kelly says uniform gate monitoring. We are monitoring the situation. I mean, look, there's there's evidence both ways. I've heard definitely no. I've heard definitely maybe. You know, like, I don't know. Look, listen, Under Armour did not make new jerseys, and the coaches and the players are not just going to be like, nah, we're good. We're not going to wear those. Like, if you make new jerseys, you're going to wear new jerseys. That's the way players are. But we'll check it out. We'll check it out. Either they do or they don't, Jamie. I don't know. Hopefully the design is good, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully
I mean, if the players are excited about wearing them and whatever, like, I mean, fair enough. Fans are fans. It's like, you know, oh, man, I got to change my seat. We're the team's not doing good, so I gotta like that. That definitely happens with. I know a ton of people who are like that, right? You know, change the mojo. Got to do this or that, right? The reality is, you know, it really has nothing to do with the game. But
the players do not. They do not care.
No. But if they like,
in terms of they care in the effect that, like, when people call it a distraction, for them it is not a distraction. You can make a case, honestly, that had they worn alternate uniforms for NIU, they win the game. To be honest, because it gives the game a little bit more weight. Like, it gives you a little bit more juice. You can make that case. Every alternate uniform game this year, they've performed really well. So there's something to say for that.
But I will say, if they are black uniforms, I just really don't understand it. Like, I just
either. Yeah.
It doesn't really make sense.
I don't get
it. It's not a color. It's not a color that is all associated with Notre Dame athletics. You know, like, I mean, black shoes, whatever. Everybody's been wearing black cleats forever. So that's not a thing. Like, you know what I mean? It's but if all of a sudden Notre Dame came out wearing you know, baby blue, right? Baby blue. You'd be like, that's strange. It doesn't really, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I just, if whatever it is, hey, it really won't matter at all. But, like, I don't know. Hopefully they look cool and they like them. So
hopefully they look cool. If it is black, I think it's to your point, it doesn't really make sense, and it can only be because the players have been requesting it for a long time.
Yeah.
That's the only reason it would be a factor, in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully, look, I think Under Armour's done a pretty good job with these, right? So we'll see. Whatever they come up with, the design is good. You can have a good design for your website or your social media page if you go with VSR Media, Jamie. That'll give you a good design. That's, of course, founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. All right, let's talk about a little bit more about this successful season mischief. So I think, for me, I'm kind of where you're at with this, where, like, if you look at this game, it's almost like opponent independent. Like, it almost kind of doesn't matter to me. Like, you're favored by 8 at home, or you're favored by a touchdown at home. In the playoffs, you work to get a home game. You should win. You should win if you're the home team in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, and again, this isn't anything to do with Indiana and, you know, they've got James Madison player. It has nothing to do with that. That you should win your home game in the playoffs. Like, that's the point, right? And so I don't think I don't look at it like you know, it's fine. Like I don't. To your point, they have done so many good things this year that it's been a good season. Period. Like Marcus Freeman did not have to build a team this good. He did not. The fact that he did build a team this good would make it even more disappointing if he didn't pay that off. Like I think they're better than Indiana, right? They just are. They're better than frankly, they're better than Georgia is. They have played better throughout the year than Georgia has. Now, Georgia has a talent, they've got an influx of talent, and especially talent at places where Notre Dame, it could kind of get hurt. But like you've outplayed them this year. Like you should beat them, right? I think you could look at going against Penn State, like regardless of, what I think about Penn State, I think Penn State has, they've played well, right? It's a lot like I think Penn State's played better this year than Georgia has throughout the year. But that's looking too far down the line. My point is that Marcus Freeman built the type of team that you say to yourself, you should beat Indiana. You should beat Georgia. I would make the case they should beat Penn State. Now, obviously, who knows what the situation is player-wise and personnel-wise by the time you get to that game. But like that's kind of how I feel about it. And so by that measure, the fact that you got to that point makes it so like this is a good year. You extended your coach. Not only did you extend your coach, you did it when everyone thinks you have to extend him, right? You built a good football team. The fact that honestly, in hindsight, the fact that you lost the NIU game is almost the best kind of loss because you need to know that you can beat the good teams. No one needs proof that Marcus Freeman coach team can beat NIU. No one needs that, right? We know that can happen. So the fact that they lost to NIU is obviously that's ridiculous. They should not have, but they beat Texas A&M. They beat USC. They beat Louisville. Right? They beat the armies, right? They beat the navies, like the good versions of those teams. You can beat the good teams. Like that's a good thing. I think for me, it would be disappointing if they didn't get past the first two rounds. It would be disappointing. It would be an underachievement based on what they've done so far this year and the type of team that they have. That's how I feel. They would be underachieving if it ended before the semifinals. That's how I feel about it.
I think that's totally fair. But I also think that, when we're looking at it, you have to look at obviously Notre Dame, you look at their injuries. And I think the further you go, the more those not having Ben Morrison, not having Patel, not having
for sure.
It does show up more because you're playing better teams every week. Right. So
right.
It is going to show up more. And also too, you don't know if are other guys not going to be available for future games and stuff too. So I think that has to be an account, but I think what you said, that's true. Notre Dame has been better than both of these teams this year. And I know Kirby Smart can say whatever you want about them being disrespected and whatever. And no doubt if Georgia plays their best, they have, I would say the big gap is they have more guys that are just first round picks.
Yeah.
They just have more of those guys on the roster. But
they haven't.
But not all those guys have played first round picks.
Right. They just haven't played that way.
They haven't played like that the whole year. Malachi Starks, and Xavier Watts. You wouldn't trade. You wouldn't trade them. You wouldn't trade them.
For sure. Malachi Starks is going to get picked higher than Xavier Watts. Xavier Watts has had a better season than him. You wouldn't trade
him on this team. You wouldn't say man, he makes Notre Dame better if you trade Watts. It's no, that's just not true.
Yeah.
So I think that that is a totally fair thing to look at it from that perspective. But I think for people to say hey, this is what we were supposed to be at the beginning of the year, and this is what you kind of expected. It's like you got to judge it really like game by game. But I think really with this game specifically, like you got to take care of business at home. You got to take care of business at home. And that's the thing that, you know, one of the things with like BK for years and years was it always seemed like whenever they had a big matchup, it was on the road for a long time. They had most of his like, hey, they're playing a top 10 team matchups were on the road for many, many years. And obviously he lost most of those games. And he didn't have a lot of those ones at home. And there is a big difference between having it at home on the road. And even I would say too, like, let's not fool ourselves too. If like Notre Dame gets past this game and they're playing in New Orleans, there's a reason why they're playing in New Orleans, because that is a closer spot for Georgia. Right. Like that's where your seating is. That's where the next thing, they get that advantage of getting that there. So it's easier for their fans to get there, whatever. I mean, I don't know how Georgia fans, if they're like going to be like, this is going to be interesting. So sorry to kind of flip it, but like, it'll be interesting to see how many of these people are going to spend money to go to all these games. Like, because there's probably a lot of Georgia fans that are like, I think they'll beat Notre Dame, or I think they'll beat Indiana, whoever they're going to play in that game. So I'm not traveling to New Orleans. I'll go to the next one, right? Like that is, or I'm going to the national championship game, right? Because, I mean, some people have a ton of money, they can do whatever, but not everyone does. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see what, like, how the fan bases travel for some of these games, where it's just a lot to have all those games there.
It is a lot. That is fact check true. There is a lot to do, you know, and I mean, the Sugar Bowl is easier, right? Because it's right, you know, you can just drive there. And so, but I think Notre Dame, and that's the good part about Notre Dame is being national, like the way they are. They got fans everywhere. People will always be willing to. There's always drivable wherever they may go. So yeah, I just think that given how well they played, and again, schedule is one thing. This is a really good football team, and they've played that way, right? And I think, you know, we had the guy in here. The guy trolling or whatever, talking about NIU. It's like, look, if you think you're getting that NIU team, then good luck and God bless. Like that's what I say. Like that's not what's coming. Like they have not been that. They have not been that. Just look at it. Like the data is out there. Look at it. You can see how well they've played. And if you look at Notre Dame and the way that they've played in games, and you look at like the Michigan team that you played and how well they've played in games, you're not getting that opponent. You're just not. So again, Indiana can absolutely win. They're going to have to play their best game of the season to win. They're going to have to play their best game of the season. They not just that, they're going to have to play better than they have so far this year to beat Notre Dame. And you know, that's what they got to do. Not saying they can't, but that's what has to happen for them. And that's what I believe is true. Jamie, let's talk about the playoff bracket here, and then we'll get to Notre Dame predictions. All right. To be honest with you, I don't know that. I'm just going to go from left to right, or on the left side. I'm going to start with Tennessee and Ohio State. I don't know what time the games are. I'm not doing this in chronological order or anything like that. But we'll just do prediction. Tennessee, Ohio State. Where are you at with this? Who do you think wins that game? Obviously, the game's at Ohio State. I believe it's at night. Do I have that right?
I think so. Yeah, I believe that's at night.
Okay, let's go. Tennessee at Ohio State.
I'm going Ohio State here, even though I kind of said like that might be the game where you see like, you know, the things kind of fall apart for them because of the matchup. I just don't like Tennessee's offense against Ohio State's defense.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're going to score a lot of points. I think the fact that that game's at home, it is a tough place to play. You know, the fans are, it's not like crazy, but it's like, it's not going to be easy. And also too, Tennessee, that's the one game where it's like, well, Tennessee's going to have to deal, or not just the one, but one of the games where Tennessee is coming up and they're going to have to, it is going to be a little bit more cold than they're used to. It's not like, it's not Southern California in Knoxville, Tennessee, but
Right.
it is probably, they still haven't played a lot of games like that where it's been cold in Tennessee, right? So I think that and the Ohio State's defense is going to be the difference in that game.
Tennessee's offense, right? They've averaged more than 5 yards of play since the opening 3 games, right? Chattanooga, NC State, Kent State. They put up 69, 51, and 71 points. Since then, they have averaged more than 6 yards of play in a game 2 times against UTEP and against Vanderbilt. I think the Vanderbilt result is pretty good, right? They've been not a terrible team. I mean, when Vanderbilt beat Alabama, it wasn't because their defense was stopping them, right? Alabama was moving up and down the field. But like, you're just not like, they're not like against Georgia, right? 313 yards, 4.3 yards of play, 4.5 yards of play against Florida. In the Alabama game, 5.7 yards of play, 408 yards. But Alabama didn't, we talked about that a little bit. Like, they don't have the best defense either. Like, I just don't think that Tennessee is as good. Like, if they can run the ball, if you're telling me they can run the ball and they've got the good running back, then I think they have a chance. But I just think that's going to be very difficult in the shoe like that. And the one thing you can say about Ohio State is they have played kind of these tough games, right?
Yeah, they're more tested than Tennessee.
Yeah. So I like Ohio State in this one. I like them to win. It's the kind of the home team thing. So that's what I think is going to happen there. Let's see. Let's just do Texas, Clemson. You think Clemson has any chance to win this game?
No, zero chance. I don't even think we need to spend too much time on this. I just don't think. I think their offense against Texas' defense. I mean, I got major questions about Quinn Ewers, obviously. Still, but
let me ask you something. To the extent you have questions about Quinn Ewers, what is and to what degree do you have questions? Like, because do you have questions about him being like a playoff winning quarterback, or like, because I think there's pretty good evidence like he's a good quarterback.
Oh, he's above average for sure. Like, he's not like I don't think he's. This is what always happens. Someone isn't as good as people want them to be, and then all of a sudden they suck. He doesn't suck. Like, that's not a thing. He's super talented. He makes like some throws that other people can't make. Like, he's a good player. It's just that in these games against like really good defenses, he is just not that guy when it's like the pressure is ratcheted up. He's just not, and he's just too inconsistent. And then I think that's the thing. But you don't have to worry about that much in this game, because I don't think Clemson's defense, they're not nearly as good as like, say, like their defense even last year was. And that has been a problem for them. And their offense looks great against bad defenses, against good defenses. And Texas might have the best defense in the country. I think they are ranked first in DF plus. Like, their defense is awesome. I don't see Clemson scoring a lot of points. I think Cade Klubnik's going to have a horrific day. And just because, not more of like, they're not going to be able to block him.
Yeah.
And so I think it'll be a blowout.
Penn State, SMU.
This one I kind of think is going to be a little bit interesting, because I think SMU is better, especially defensively, than a lot of people think. But I mean, SMU's had too many problems turning the ball over. Like, they already had the one Duke game where they should have lost.
Yeah.
They really lost the Clemson game because of all the turnovers. Because if they didn't turn the ball over like that, like they would have won the game. They would have won the game. And this is also a game where James Franklin wins these games. When he has the better team, he wins. When it's close, he has lost.
Yeah.
So I think they'll win this game probably by a couple touchdowns.
I think I think SMU has been a lot better than I think SMU's been a lot better since they change to the quarterback. We kind of talked about that on a show maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. But like they haven't faced the kind of dudes up front that Penn State has. Like you just don't see that, right? Like you like Clemson a little bit, but it's like it's not the same as it was when they had, Christian Wilkins and
Abdul Carter's probably like a top 5 pick.
Right. Like he's a dude, right? And they've got some guys, especially defensively, right? What is your take on Drew Aller?
I think he is better than people give him credit for, but I think he's clearly gotten way better than he was last year. He's leaps and bounds better than he was. I don't think they use him right. I still think they need to run him more. I think if he runs more is when he's at his best. If they need to use him as a runner more. He can really run. And he's big, and he's just one of these guys that and he gets going downhill. He is not Josh Allen in terms of, because he's that big and obviously he can run too. He's not that, but he's closer than people think. So I like him. To me, he's like, it's a good thing he's staying in school for another year. Put it that way. That's how I view him. He's an unfinished product, but an improving player.
Yeah. Every time I watch him, I think of Spike from Little Giants, and I can't unsee it. Now that the first time I saw it, I was like, oh God, like I'm watching Spike play quarterback for Penn State. And so there's like a negative connotation there. But it's just funny. I think he's a tough kid. I think he's a competitor. However they played against USC and Notre Dame comparisons and that sort of thing, he showed something in the way they came back in that game, in the way that he made the plays that he needed to make sure they didn't lose, right? And so, I think he showed something there. I think he showed something in the way that they kept coming at Oregon the way they did, right? Like, I think he showed something there. So I think he's a good player. I just think that sometimes it's like you said about Indiana a little bit, like, man, there's just some dudes that Penn State has that SMU hasn't really seen, and it just makes it very, very difficult. All right, Indiana at Notre Dame. I just checked the weather before we started. It was just like weather.com. I don't have these fancy apps that people have, like AccuWeather or like Weather NASA satellite, whatever. But
yeah, the one guy was like throwing out that weather something.
Yeah.
I was like, I never even heard of this.
He had something, and I was like, do you work for like?
Is he a meteorologist?
Yes. Are you a meteorologist? It was 21 high, I believe. It was at night 15% chance of snow. During the day, 65%. So if there is snow, but it was like less than an inch. So it's not going to snow like a ton, should it snow at all. But it's going to be cold. I would imagine there's going to be a little bit of wind, right? I think I read somewhere that, or I saw somewhere that it was going to be windy during the day, not as much at nighttime. But that's a factor. Again, Marcus Freeman, I should point out, it's been pointed out on the Twitter machine that he did wear a black and gold hoodie. I'm going to tell you right now, I have been convinced they are wearing black tomorrow, on Friday. That I've been I now believe that is going to happen. I didn't think it until today when he said there are new uniforms. You know, they did the unboxing thing. Under Armour did the thing, and they gave all the guys black and gold sweaters. The fact that he wore black and gold today is just like, he's not a dumb person. He is not a naive person. He knows what the chatter is. I think that was on purpose. I mean, why would they do a complete head fake? Like, at this point, I think they are doing it. It would be a head fake for them to like just wear blue and gold or like all green or something. And why would they do that? That's like too cute by half. I think they have teased it and they're just going to do it. That's what I think they're going to do. So that's my take on that situation. Prediction, Jamie, what do you got for this game?
Notre Dame 27, Indiana 13. And
Okay.
I think that, like I said, I think it's going to be tight for a good portion of the game. I think that Notre Dame is going to have, some frustrating moments on offense, because I think that Indiana's got a good defense. And I think that, like, where Notre Dame has obviously been really, really good in the red zone. And I think they will get red zone touchdowns, but not every time. So I think they're going to have to kick at least one short field goal in that. So, but I also think that I could see
you
Indiana.
have 27. You have them kicking 2 short field goals.
Yes. So, I think that, I didn't say both are going to be short.
Hey,
so, yeah, but no, I think whatever. Like, I just think that they will, like, it's going to be that where the last field goal will be more of like, hey, we're just kind of like adding on.
Yeah.
There at the end. Gotcha. I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana's offense kind of gets a pretty good start and then they fizzle out, like, and have some struggles throughout the game. That's how I kind of see it playing out.
Yeah. I'm similar. I have Notre Dame 28, Notre Dame 28, Indiana 16. Don't ask me how they get to 16. I'm saying 16. I think it's going to be one of those games where fans are consistently saying to themselves, man, if Notre Dame could just get up 2 scores, it'll be fine. Just get up 2 scores, and they just can't for a good amount of the game, like you said. Like, I think it'll be like 14-7 for like kind of a long time. Something like that, 10 or 7-0, 14-7, something like that. And they'll just, be trying to kind of pull away, and they can't, but they're never really out of control. It's like, I think there's going to be a lot of moments where people are thinking, man, Notre Dame is in control, but they could lose control on this possession, and so I think it's going to be difficult. I think Indiana is good. I think they're good, especially on defense, like you said. Like, I'm convinced by the defensive stuff. I think they've got a good defensive team. I just think Notre Dame's going to be able to get points a little bit easier than Indiana will throughout the day. So 28-16 is what I've got.
Coach Humph, how many second half points for Indiana? I'm going to say 3.
3 second half points.
3 second half points. For
so Indiana. 10 at half. That's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. It's a fair take. All right. I think we can end it there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, please like the show. Please subscribe to our channel. Please hit the notification bell so whenever it is we are going to go live. I'll have to figure out the after recap, Jamie, or the instant reaction, because you'll be in South Bend. So I'll figure it out. I will definitely be here. I'm actually missing things to do the post game show, so I will be doing that. And then I'll do the morning after recap as well on Saturday. So those are the shows that are coming up. Beyond that, enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the game on Friday, and we'll talk to you afterwards. Okay. Everyone, if you're going, please get there safe. Please get home safe. Please stay warm. From a Notre Dame point of view, cheer loud and proud. All right. All right. We'll talk to you guys. Keep hitting and hustling.